We'll call the Board of Public Works meeting of Monday, December 6th to order. Number 2, approval of minutes, November 15th. Motion, Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Rosendich. Comments, questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Citizens' comments, I see nobody out there, so we'll go to number 4, update on winter snow season readiness, presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
How's that?
There you go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I did this last year and it actually went pretty good. So I added a few more things this year, and I just wanted to get you guys up to speed on how we prepare for the winter season, which came upon us today. It seemed like good news is I looked at the 8 to 14 day forecast on Channel 7, and they're calling for above normal temperatures. So we'll get through this week, and next week will be nice out. So I'm glad to say last year when I came into this, we were pretty short-staffed. Thanks to Park and Rec, that kind of held us over. They did sidewalks for us and stuff, and we pulled mechanics and cul-de-sac guys, and we did our primary and our subdivision roads first, and then we broke off. It took us a little bit longer last year, but like I said, we're back at full staff, and we're in pretty good shape. So tonight I just kind of want to go through a few things. Equipment that we use. We have 2 motor graders that we use for plowing snow, 5 front-end loaders. 2 of them are dedicated to St. Joe's and Central, and the other 2 are dedicated to the parking lots, and the other 5th loader is just dedicated to the alleys. We have 8 salter trucks that plow and salt, and that leaves us with 4 other trucks that just have plows on them. And we have 2 tractors that basically have either a broom attachment or a snowblower attachment to do our sidewalks. What we did this year is last year we used to open up the business driveways along St. Joe's and South Central with a skid steer loader. This year we changed it up a little bit, and we're having our loader operators open those up. One thing is it's a little bit more efficient and quicker. And the second thing is for the safety. That guy out in the skid steer loader on South Central, when traffic is pretty heavy at times, he's just in a little skid steer, and guys, and the traveling public can't see him as well as a big front end loader. So we changed that up. It worked really well this morning, and so we're going to keep monitoring that to see how that goes, and we think it's going to go pretty good. As far as technology, hey Dan, if you could you kind of flip to the couple of the attachments? I want to go to our Dtn Weather Station. The Dtn Weather Station that we have is pretty unique. It not only gives us our radar, but it also gives us forecasted pavement temperatures, wind speed, wind direction. And there it is, Dan. Yeah, and you guys have this in your packet too. And what's unique about it, it gives us all kinds of hourly forecasts. It gives us, like I said, temperature forecasted out. It gives us pavement temperature forecasted out. And of course, we have the radar with it. So that's kind of a unique piece of technology that we utilize daily during this time of year. There is pavement sensors on all the state trunk highways. If we want to kind of basically see how accurate that is, or what the pavement temperatures and bridge temperatures are doing, we can actually log on to the WISDOT website and get that information. Anti-icing, we didn't have a real good, well, November was actually really good for us. We didn't actually put the plows down in November at all, but December 2nd was the first time we thought it would be a good opportunity to anti-ice. Just looking back at my notes on that was a Thursday. And in my notes, I had weather forecast calling for 1 inch of snow or less between the hours of 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. Sunny and breezy today, dried up the pavement, decided anti-ice our curb and gutter streets. With that, we utilized our 2 new trucks, our big tri-axle dump trucks that have salters on them. They also have 1,200 gallon brine tanks on them, and it worked really well. So not only did we utilize our tanker truck to anti-ice, we utilized our 2 new trucks to do it. We got started later in the morning. We almost got completed with everything that we wanted to get done, but we figured we could anti-ice and with those 3 vehicles in an 8-hour shift. What the results of that was on that Thursday, during the day, we put the anti-ice down. It did snow about an inch that night, and came in early Friday morning, and all we had to do was send out the salters and just had to monitor that witching hour for us. The coldest part of the morning is between 6:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were wet, and we didn't want them to freeze dry or, flash freeze like they did on Thanksgiving Day. So we had the trucks out there just kind of monitoring, and we didn't really have to do anything. We had to touch up a few spots, but the anti-icing for that application worked really well for us. Of course, we've been pre-wetting salt with our salters for decades now. So with that, we calibrate the salters every year to say if we put down 200 pounds of salt per lane mile, we actually calibrate the salters to make sure that they are calibrated that way. And then we do the same with our pre-wetting of the salt. And what that does then, as you put down salt and you pre-wet it, it activates the salt immediately. You don't have to have moisture. You need moisture to activate the salt to melt. It's already, once it hits the pavement, it's already wetted and it's activated the salt. So what's our procedure when it comes to salting and plowing? One last thing I forgot. Sorry about that. Technology. Salting controllers and our precise website track fleet and salt pre-wet usage. And I think, Dan, on that one slide I had in your packet, we could actually track the trucks to find out where they're at, or maybe they have missed a street. Somebody might call on and say, hey, you haven't hit my street yet. We can actually go into this nice program that we have, and it'll show where the trucks went. You can click on it. It'll say how much he's putting down at that rate. Sometimes guys don't get the message. You call them up and we said that we'll put 300 pounds per lane mile today. And you look at his truck and it'll say he's putting 400 pounds down. You just get on the radio and say, hey, check your controller. It says you're putting 400 down. We want 300 down. The other unique thing about this is we had an accident last winter on Veterans and Laurel over by Comfort System. And it was in the middle of the night. We had just started to plow, and there was a windrow across Veterans Parkway, and a car had drove through it and basically ripped his bumper off. And so he took videos of it and everything, and he sent it to us and said, hey, your plow truck driver left a big windrow on Veterans Parkway. Well, number one, we don't do that. And number two, with this program that we got, I was able to track when the truck driver actually was on Veterans Parkway at Laurel, and it was before the accident. So basically the accident happened. We hadn't even gotten up there yet. Because the guy took videos and pictures and he had timestamp on it and everything, I said, sir, it wasn't us. It must have been somebody who dropped their plow on Laurel and was going to go out and do a private job and left a big windrow in Veterans Parkway. So it saved us a claim, an accident claim. So that was kind of neat. Little CSI investigating there. Okay, on to our salting and plowing operations. Two or more inches of snow, generally, we'll do a full plow operation like we did last night. Everyone has assigned routes. We have 21 people with motor graders, front end loaders, salter trucks and plows. Each vehicle has a binder in it, which is kind of neat. We started this a couple years ago. I think Phil started this, and then we've kind of updated it every year. And so basically, if somebody else is in a different truck for the day due to some guy's on vacation or whatever, he can go in his truck, grab his binder, look right on the front of his binder. This one right here, Route 71. He's got his route all highlighted in here. It's in a section, and his priority routes are highlighted in red. So he's got to hit those first, and then he can go off and start hitting the subdivision streets. So that's kind of a unique thing in here too. In the binder itself, it shows the full plow truck routes. It shows where each truck is at. So if he needs a hand with somebody, he can call that truck number and they can give him a hand. And so all kinds of interesting information that the guys came up with in the last couple of years. Like I said, it comes in handy. We got guys on vacation or guys are out sick. If they're not in their normal route, we need to put them somewhere else. He can grab that binder. We do have wall maps that work on the wall too. They can look at those. The other thing we did this year is basically we have 2 guys per route, per section that are always going to work together. So with that, we have a lot of new guys. With that, these 2 guys are going to kind of work together all the time, and we believe that, you know, they'll become very consistent. And we think with consistency, it'll breed efficiency. So that was kind of something new that we did. Like today, like last night, after the snow event, the guys got done plowing. They plowed St. Joe's and South Central, and then we came back later in the morning and picked up the piles that we have to plow to the center on St. Joe's and Central. Salting only, our anti-icing operations less than 2 inches. We'll just do a curb and gutter pass, 2 passes, both lanes, and then the residential streets will go down once down the middle with the salter. Weekends and holidays, we have a supervisor on call from November 1st through April 1st. Each week, we switch off every 3rd week between myself and Cody and Tim. We're on call, but we also have weekend call guys. So there'll be a weekend call guy that's on call every weekend. That's 24, we got 24-hour monitoring during this time of year. That's the nice thing about being full staff right now too, is because we have a second shift guy or maintenance technician. He's basically works from 2 to 10. And then we have our night guy who works from 8 to 6. So we pretty much got 24-hour coverage now. So for instance, tonight, our guys worked last night from midnight to noon. And then we called in our technician to start early, and he picked up from noon until he'll work till 10 o'clock tonight. And he basically hit with all the roads that were drifted over, all the trouble spots. And then tonight, him and the other gentleman will work up cleaning up some more of the downtown areas, touching up the parking lots and stuff like that. Overtime and weekends, like we started yesterday morning. Was kind of unique because we started early in the morning, the roads were slippery, and when we got in about 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, it wasn't even snowing anymore. And they were, at that point, they were only calling for a trace to 3 inches of snow. We thought we were sitting pretty good, and about 8:30, it started snowing, and it didn't quit until 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So what our priorities were on the weekend, after we kind of regrouped and dropped the plows down, we kept the priority routes open all day yesterday, and we came back and he said, okay, we'll regroup and come back in at midnight and do a full plow operation. So if you're kind of wondering what a full plow operation takes as far as timing, it takes about 6 hours depending on staff availability and the amount of snow. Also, if you're doing it during the day, the traffic patterns, it's a little tougher to kind of, can you imagine trying to be in a plow truck at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning when everybody's trying to get to work and go to school? It takes a little bit longer. And if we just do a salting operation, it's just under 4 hours to do a salting operation. So just to give you an idea, we have 311 lane miles of streets. We updated that now that we have the new city subdivision. We have 3 miles of paved alleys, or 6 if you think it's one way, but we only have to plow them once. So 3 miles of paved alleys, 4 miles of unpaved alleys. We have 85 cul-de-sacs in the city of Marshfield. 12 parking lots that we do now, and over 5 miles of public sidewalk that we have too. So that's including around the parking lots and outskirts where we have city-owned land that has sidewalk abutting to it. So a couple other things I want to touch on tonight are just to let the public know that we have Sandbox Locations, of course. Those are located at the intersections by the schools, conveniently for the crossing guards to provide safe traction for the public. And that's also, those are also available for public use. We just want to say, you know, if you go there, get a coffee can full. You can go there each time, just get a coffee can full. We do see some people that kind of abuse it, pull up with in the trunk of the car and have 5 gallon pails of sand. So they empty fast that way, and then the crossing guards are calling us and saying, hey, they're empty and we got to go refill them. So, but we monitor that. That they're really good at calling us and letting us know that they're empty. The other thing I want to touch on tonight is just a reminder: there's no parking, overnight parking on city streets. That I think it starts on November 1st through April 30th, and it's basically from 2:30 to 6 a.m. And then one last thing. The other thing is, before my one last thing, is the reminder about sidewalk, snow, and ice removal. Basically, if you have a sidewalk that's abutting your property, it's the owner's responsibility to maintain that sidewalk clear of ice and snow. You have 48 hours after a snow event. We usually wait until we have all of our sidewalks done. So like tomorrow, we'll have to go back out and broom off the sidewalks because of all the wind. And then by Friday, we'll expect the public to have their sidewalks done also. And it's a complaint-driven process that we go through. If somebody doesn't shovel the sidewalk, somebody you'll call in. It's really for the traveling. It's for the mailmen that have to walk and anybody else that has to walk on the sidewalks. It's more of a safety hazard, and it could save you from being sued by the person that slips and falls on your sidewalk. Here's one that a lot of people don't know about, but I want to stress, is depositing your snow in the streets. Please don't blow your snow out into the street. There's nothing worse than having the street all cleaned up, it's wet, and you go down the road and there's the guy blowing his snow with a snow blower, covering the traveling lane once again. We just have to go back and clean it up. And number two, it's illegal to do that. It's against state ordinance, city ordinance. And again, it's a safety hazard. So blowing snow out in the street, please don't do it. And one last thing, just wanted to remind everybody, now that we're at full staff, we do have 5 new guys this year that have never plowed before. So we ask for you to have some patience with us, and as the season goes along and our new guys get better, they'll become more efficient, and hopefully we won't knock your mailbox down. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Chris, maybe you want to mention about the snow emergency when that's.
Oh, sure, yeah. Usually about 6+ inches of snow will declare a snow emergency, or right around there if the weather is just really bad out. It's windy, everything is locked up. We'll call a snow emergency. Then there's no parking on the city streets at all, just for us to maintain, to get the roads opened up, and we don't have to go around parked cars and stuff. So, yeah.
Any questions for Chris? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Number 5, approval of Bacter jet vacuum combination truck purchase for wastewater, presented by Sam Warp, Wastewater Superintendent. Sam.
Thanks, Tom. The wastewater division has a jet vac combination truck. It's our big truck that you see out on the streets. Use it for cleaning mains and manholes throughout the year, and we do it for all our preventive maintenance work through the year. That truck was actually purchased in 2013. It's a 2014 model. That's a Bacter brand. One thing about the jet vac combination industry is every brand has their own patented unique features that they have on the truck. So it doesn't really matter whose truck you buy, you're not going to get those features on another one. So you really can't compare them apples to apples all the time, because no two are the same. One thing about a jet vac combination, there's actually 2 parts. There's the chassis and then the jet vac part. So what I did is anybody that knows me knows I buy local. So I went to iState and I said I wanted to get a Western Star chassis and got a hold of a salesman who's lived in Marshfield since 1985 selling trucks. And he went through the pages and pages of options, and he went through the Wisconsin state bid that they have on those chassis, and he crossed out, because we didn't need them, like for example, like the tires if you're an over-the-road trucker, because this truck hardly ever leaves town. So he says, you can save several $1,000s by dropping these tires and going to these tires. And he went through like that through the whole thing, and we're really happy. He come up with a very competitive bid. I took that to Bacter, and Bacter said, well, that's a better price than what we can get it for, so we're not even going to bid it. We'll go with what iState has. So I went to Bacter, and Wisconsin does not bid out a Bacter type combination truck. Minnesota does in their state bid process. So I made them bid against the Minnesota state bid to get the best price possible there too. And we pretty much put the same options on this truck compared to the one that we have currently. The one big difference is they came out with a new patented vacuum hose setup, which is much safer. And so we added that on. So you take the two, first you buy the chassis, and then you take it down to Northern Illinois and they assemble it and then get it back to you. Right now, the lead time on it is 1 year, and that would probably be the earliest it would come. In fact, they even quote the truck as a 2023. So that's the world we live in. There ain't much we can do about that. So we had $508,000 in the CIP for this truck. The total bids from the two combined were $495,000, so that come in under what we had estimated. The real sweet spot of this is our truck. We've taken very good care of it. The guys do a great job cleaning it. We keep it in where it's warm. 1 year from now, they would still give us $170,000 for that truck. So that really brings the purchase price down to about $325,000. So on some of the pictures, I don't know, you can scroll back to right, that top one there, that's where they're actually clamping on some of the aluminum tubes, the guy on the left. That's where we have the trouble. We've went to a newer style clamp that's a little bit safer, but you're still hoping that the guy on the right isn't going to bump the controls or sneeze or cough or something when you're trying to get that on, because your fingers are right there. So what they replace that with is the one below. You can see where the actual suction tube actually extends out 15 feet. So it'll go 15 feet down a manhole. Most manholes aren't that deep. So we're eliminating that whole tube dilemma, much safer. The next one, that shows you the truck we have now is the old-fashioned switches and dials and levers and that, and now they're going to a little bit more digital. It's a lot easier to work with. That's one of the tricks of training somebody on this. The truck we have now is just, there's a lot of levers, where this is all on the screen and they've simplified it a little bit. The last picture there, I like white, so I buy white. Every vehicle I bought is white, but by the time this one comes, it'll be somebody else's decision on that. So that's just a picture of the finished truck. Pretty nice looking truck. So with that, staff would recommend accepting the bid from McQueen Equipment for the total package cost of $495,572 and to purchase a 2023 Western Star Bacter 2100i combination jet vac truck.
I have a motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Mr. Rosendich. Sam, would you just touch on how critical this type of machine is? I mean, because I know years ago, we didn't do as much cleaning as what we do now, and how that helps, please.
It's the name of the game is prevention. If you can get out there and prevent it, the guys target to do 1/3 of the city every year for cleaning. In reality, the math works out that way. On PVC pipe, where there's no trouble, we probably get there every 6 years. On downtown, the older sections of town, we're probably there every year. But the math works out that's about 1/3 of the city every year. And that works out to over 300,000 feet that they clean every year. and you do it 1 foot at a time. It's not like you get to do bunches, manhole to manhole. In fact, the guys, I think, up through November, they had like 326,000 feet cleaned already this year. Did none today, that's for sure.
And that also helps Sam with preventing backups.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, that's the name of the game. You get in there, and that was probably my favorite job when I started out in this industry was jetting and vacuuming. You really get to learn the mains, you get to learn the sounds, and everything you're pulling back all the time. You're vacuuming out that grit before it goes down to the lift station or to the next pipe. So we do a lot of work on manholes. Anytime you do construction, stuff gets knocked in. So we clean them too.
Anybody have any question? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Sam. And number 6, approval of lateral launch camera purchase for wastewater, presented by Sam Warp, wastewater superintendent. Sam.
The last neat piece of camera equipment we bought was in 2019. It was called the Lateral Launcher. What we had before, and we still have all the equipment, but we used to televise the mains, and you get one video, and then you'd get in the house and you'd run a camera down the lateral from the basement out, and you get that lateral, and then you televise the manholes, and then you get all that information together, and you get it to the street division, and you get it to the engineering division. And then we look at it too. Then you kind of evaluate the condition of the pipe and what needs to be fixed. And that drives our street projects as well, because sometimes you may have 2 streets where neither one is great. They both need some work, but one of them's got wore out pipe underneath. So we're going to do that one first. And it's used by all the departments. And then in 2019, we bought a lateral launcher, they call it. And the pictures are on the next page. And it basically runs down the lateral on the big wheels there and gets all the video. And then when it comes to a lateral, that front cone on the right side there can actually pivot. And then from there, it pushes a separate camera up the lateral. And then we televise underneath the streets, usually to the right of way, on all the laterals for our street projects. And then we pull it back and it goes up, and then you go to the next lateral. And you just, when you're all done, you've got a picture of all the pipe that's underneath between manhole to manhole. And engineering can sit there and evaluate all the pipe and all the connections. It is a slick unit. When we bought the thing in 2019, it had already been on the market for about 5 years, and I figured, well, they got all the kinks worked out of it. Well, they didn't. And in 2020, they come out with a new one that did have all their problems corrected. So we waited a couple of years. We've heard nothing but great reviews on this one. A lot of the maintenance issues on the first one are taken care of. So we had them bid out, give us an estimate for a new one. And staff would recommend accepting the bid from McQueen Equipment for an EnviroSite SAT-2 lateral launch system for a cost of $118,795 and the funds to come from the 2022 wastewater CIP.
I have a motion by Mr. Fire, second. Mr. Marshall, comments, questions? Mr. Rosendich.
What are you gonna do with the old one? Like the one that you just bought a couple of years ago?
We're gonna keep it. What the game is we wanna be able to retrofit the old one, because the whole bottom part is the same. It's just that top head that's different. Well, they absolutely won't retrofit it for us. They won't tell us what we need because they want us to buy a new one. So we said, all right, fine, we'll play that game. We'll buy your new one. And then we're gonna retrofit the old one, because then we got one sitting side by side and we'll know what we need. And we can go online, see the parts, and order the parts ourselves. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Actually, the money for that comes from that $170,000 that we're saving on the Bacter. We're gonna use part of that for this. Otherwise, it would have been the CIP for the next year, so.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that these 2 pieces of equipment are primarily used for preventative and pre-construction investigation and so forth, but they're also called out when we have sewer backups and problems. The Bacter truck responds. The cameras are used to diagnose problems in private laterals. And we've experienced some downtimes with our current camera when it's gotta get repaired, and timing on everything these days is is more extended than you like it to be. So we just felt it was important to have a backup one so that if somebody does have a sewer backup, if we can respond, check their lateral out for them without saying, hey, sorry, our camera's out. Can't do anything right now. So both these pieces of equipment are critical to be responsive on sewer backup situations.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Sam.
I know they're big ticket items, but we don't buy them every day, so.
Yeah.
Number 7, approval of RFP for Adler Road Trail Design presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. You'll probably recall that back in 2020, we were awarded a Transportation Alternatives Program grant. It's called their TAP program from the Wisconsin DOT for a bike pedestrian trail on Adler Road from Sycamore down to Weber Park. And that will complete a missing link in our city's trail network on the west side. And that funding begins in July of 2022 through the state's programming. We've identified this as being a consultant project, and we typically use a request for proposals, RFP process to select consultants. DOT's process is a little bit different than ours. It stretches out a little bit longer. You might say, well, this doesn't start till July. Why are we jumping in on this already? It takes a bit longer. They use a QBS process, quality-based selections or qualification-based selection, which does not involve a price for the services. So we send this proposal to selected firms. They give us their qualifications on completing projects of this type. Once we rank those, then DOT would negotiate with that top-ranked firm to come up with a price. So that process extends the length of time it takes to get a consultant on board. And then if they don't reach a successful negotiation with the top-ranked firm, they'd go to the next firm. I don't know that happens all that often, but that's why extra time is allowed in the process. And then ultimately DOT gives their final approval of the consultant selection and the costs and so forth before work can begin. It's actually a 3-party contract signed between the DOT, the city, and the contractor. On other projects where we've gotten state funding, like you remember our 29th Street project from a few years ago and our Lincoln Avenue from 5th Adler, we're funding the design of that 100% locally, so we haven't had to go through this more extensive process. The trail project, we are getting 80% funding up with that grant, so that's why the process is a little bit different here, and we're getting a little further jump on it. In your packet is the draft of the request for proposals. It's very similar to the format we've used before, except we're not asking for anything related to the pricing of the services. And we reference the DOT process within the proposal, our request for proposals. So tonight, all we're asking for is approval of this form of RFP. The schedule that I put in here, I believe, has us sending this out after the holidays in January, proposals back in February, and those target dates are what we're looking for. So with that, I recommend approval of the RFP and authorizing staff to solicit.
Motion, Mr. Fire. Second, Mr. Rosendin. Question. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Dan. Number 8, approval of preliminary resolution 2021-64 for East 17th Street projects presented by Tom Churchy, City Engineer. Tom.
All right, every year we get into building new projects, doing new streets, and the preliminary resolution is the first step in starting the special assessment process for these projects. This project is project number 312067, street construction, water main and service laterals, storm sewer and service laterals, and project 351755, which is sanitary sewer and service laterals on East 17th Street from Maple Avenue to Peach Avenue. And it includes items such as curb and gutter, asphalt street paving, sanitary sewer main, service laterals, storm sewer, screen just went black, there we go. And service laterals, water main and service laterals, concrete driveway aprons, concrete sidewalk, and general site grading, including all items for the construction of a new municipal street. The assessment district for this project is all property fronting and abutting East 17th Street, and including its intersection with Maple Avenue, to and including its intersection with Peach Avenue. Following getting this ready for this meeting, I did start working on estimated special assessments for this project, and I handed out some information here. And I'd like to kind of go through it because over the past decade or so, Dan Knack and staff from the engineering division have been pretty good at getting grants and other assistance for funding our municipal projects in the city of Marshfield with our major reconstruction projects such as this. And through a variety of sources, or like Lincoln Avenue and 29th Street, we saw those projects funded at an 80-20 split. When there's funding sources that help offset some of those costs, it helps reduce the overall cost of special assessments. On this project, right now, there are no additional alternate funding sources, so this is got some larger special assessments, and street special assessments are based on a one-third, and sidewalks and driveways are on a 100% basis to the adjacent property owner. So what I did was I created an example spreadsheet of a lot that would be about 100 feet wide, where they have 100 feet of residential frontage, with about 25 square yards of driveway apron, and a 4-inch sidewalk is about 389 square feet, with 111 square feet of 6-inch sidewalk for the driveway. Based upon just running numbers using this year's bid prices and what we're hearing for asphalt costs for 2022, which are going to be 15 to 20% higher than this year's, I came up with a front assessable rate of $62.36 linear foot. And driveways at $62.33 per square yard, sidewalks 4-inch at $5.85, and 6-inch sidewalks at $6.84 per square yard. So if you take a look at the first run, which is an example with no credits, a 100-foot lot may see a special assessment approaching almost $11,000. The following line is the number of years that they're allowed per the municipal code to pay for that size of special assessment. The 4.6% is what the interest rate was charged last year. So that homeowner in this instance would end up paying $840 per year and over and above their taxes for special assessments. So I wanted to kind of take a look at some other options to discuss, because this is one of those projects where it was kind of a surprise to me because I haven't seen numbers this high in recent years. So the second example I put out is a 50% sidewalk credit, which basically uses the same street and driveway and everything else assessments. But it basically is saying that 50% of the sidewalk in these instances would be then credited so that you reduce that special assessment of about $1,500. I also did an example where we did a 50% sidewalk credit, and basically where the city would pick up 25% or 50% of the assessable items, and then 25 then gets split versus the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. With this one, using that, and it does bring it down a little bit more, so it's about 3,000 less than what the no credit example is. And then one of the other items I want to look at was what if we build these roads for certain weights of trucks and type of vehicle usage. In about 3 to 5 years ago, we did modify our assessment code so that even if we decide that we need to put in a concrete street with curb and gutter because we're having heavy trucks on it, we actually will prorate the special assessments down to a 3-inch asphalt pavement street. So the residential properties are assessed as if it was a residential street, even though we're building it to a different standard. So that they're not punished for living on a street that may have a lot more traffic on it, so that we can make sure we get the life that we want onto the roads. So in the fourth example, I said, well, what if we take and remove the breaker stone run and the excavation that's associated with that, and just charge for the asphalt and the gravel and the excavation that goes with that asphalt. If you take a look at the drawings I have below, you can kind of see the cross sections that I have for a city street. The larger one where I have the pink for the gravel and the blue for the breaker stone run, you can see the green box on the side is what would be considered excavation. And then on the other side, I have a little red box that kind of shows if we just assessed for the gravel itself and the excavation associated with that, and assume that the breaker stone one is part of the construction to make sure that the roads last the lifetime that they need to be, what the difference would be on that. So by doing that, removing the breaker stone run and the excavation, and then putting a 50% sidewalk credit, we reduce the street accessible cost to about $44.77. And then you reduce, your sidewalks to 50%, which is about $3,200 less than what the original estimate is. And I also just wanted to throw a quick example of what you might see if there was an 80-20 split like we have with 29th Street or what we'll see with Lincoln Avenue. And in that instance, you can see that the residential front rate is quite a bit less. It's based upon, in a 80-20 split, the 20% is divided 50-50 to the adjacent property owners. And so you end up with a special assessment rate of about $22.87 per linear foot. So I just want to throw that out for an example. I'm not looking for any action tonight on the examples that I have out here, but I do think that we may want to take a look at of providing some type of benefit or credit to residents that would help reduce some of that cost when we don't have alternate funding sources assisting with it, to try to make it more even for everyone in the community, because, we'd love to apply for an 80-20 split and save them a ton of money, but it doesn't happen every project.
Go ahead.
Is there any, I know it's probably too late, or maybe it's just too soon, I guess, but for the new infrastructure plan, is there anything in there that you could bid on to get into this project?
Well,
Grants,
with that, we have the ARPA funding, and there has been discussion about using some of that to help fund some, because we know the project costs on this project are gonna go up. That would help reduce that. If we do, if the group decides to use that, or the council decides to use some of that money towards us, that would help.
Mr. Fire.
By removing the breaker run, what do you think, what does that do to the life of the road?
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, you're gonna put it in?
No, we're gonna put the breaker stone run in,
Okay,
we're gonna put the under drain in, we're gonna put the fabrics in. We just wouldn't assess for that piece of item, which would bring it down to more like what we see on a residential asphalt street.
That was my question. I wouldn't see taking that out.
No.
Especially there's a lot of trucks.
Go ahead, Tom.
So like on your project, which we didn't have, we had local road improvement funding. We also had some utility funding because of the infrastructure that was placed under there. And with sidewalks on the project that like we did on Cleveland, where we're changing sidewalks that are in good shape, that are being changed for grade, we are actually not assessing the adjacent property owners for those things, because we need to make that road fit and finish the road when it's done. In this instance, on 17th Street, there's no sidewalk, so it's all gonna be brand new. So that, and we felt, well, I kind of feel that when you take a look at the big picture, there's benefit to, the homeowner, but there's also benefit to people in the neighborhood that are using that sidewalk by creating a 50% credit on sidewalk in new installation locations. That does help reduce that cost to that resident, because, ultimately they do have to maintain the snow and keep it shoveled and maintain it from there on out. I think it's a benefit to them in the long run too, that way.
Go ahead, Mr. Rosen.
What are, is this pretty similar to what other communities are doing too, to try to do it like this, if they have projects like Rapids, Point, all that good stuff?
Well, each community, there's state statutes that kind of direct what you can and can't, or the amount you can assess. Each community kind of does it their own way. There are communities that don't do it at all. There are communities that do it, that wouldn't even consider making adjustments. It's all over the board.
I think it's something to look at, but we gotta realize if we're gonna reduce it for the people on the roads, the rest of the taxpayers are picking up the difference. And how do you explain to somebody that just paid their assessment? I'm not against this, but those are things we gotta think of. Right.
Well,
Yes.
Well, and you want to be consistent.
Right.
That's the big thing about this. And where we get funding, alternate funding sources, you know, if we don't do something that's maybe tie the discount or the credit based upon the funding sources that we have available. If there are funding sources available, like we had on Cleveland or Lincoln or 29th, then we don't consider a discount or changing it. But in the instances where we don't have any type of alternate funding source, we take a look at something a little bit different. And I would probably try to propose some type of ordinance change that would provide for some additional benefit in this instance. If you take a look at one of the 100-foot lot or 100-foot lot, there's probably a couple houses on this project that may not be worth maybe 5 times the amount of the special assessment, which does make it kind of difficult when you take a look at the value of the assessment versus the property.
Mr. Fire.
Yeah. So, but tonight, basically what I'm asking for is approval of these resolution 2021-64 and maybe just a little bit of direction on what you like me to take a look at or bring back for some type of proposal to amend the ordinance to help bring those costs down a little bit.
Ideas, Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, so in recent years, the reconstructions that we've done have always had some, or mostly have had some outside funding source with them. So the norm is not to be doing these major reconstructions with only city dollars. And that's what Tom recognizes, that, boy, this is gonna really be a hardship for some of these property owners because we don't have a way to reduce the special assessments because of outside funding. So I think it's good to look at these things. Don't know what the right answer is on it yet, but the sidewalk one makes sense to me because others benefit from the sidewalk there other than just the property owner. So the 50% cost share makes sense. And reducing the typical section of what's accessible in that seems like a valid option. Do you do more than one of those things? I'm not sure, but I guess what we're just asking is if you can give it some thought, and if you think it's worthwhile to look at some saving options here, then we'll pursue it further. If you think, no, we gotta stick with what's in the municipal code, we can drop it. But we haven't really updated our methods of computing special assessments for quite some time, but I do know they've become much larger over time, and they're becoming a greater percentage of the value of the property, as Tom was trying to say. You know, property values have gone up over the years, but not as much as construction costs. So, where in past, you might have had a special assessment that was 5% of the assessed value of a property. Now it's probably, some of these could be closer to 20% of the value of the assessed value of a property. And then pretty soon you're getting beyond the point of the project being a benefit to the property.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just ran through, you know, playing with the numbers on this, I ran through an example of if we were building a concrete street like this was originally proposed in the CIP, and there was not that asphalt residential equivalent, it was the special assessments would be around $130 a linear foot per street. So I just wanted, you know, I've been looking at this and trying to think of ways to soften the blow, because I have to deal with the property owners and I don't want them to be coming to you with complaints either.
Mr. Rosen.
That's one of my questions is, how are we going to, get the information to them? To basically break it down how we're doing. They're not listening to this.
Well, and this isn't a decision. I'm just trying to make some suggestions at this point. If, let's say, you know.
So they understand the assessment is higher now than it was if we had an 80-20 split. Like, that is why. How are we gonna explain that? I think that.
Well, I can easily do that at those meetings. You know, we've already had one public informational meeting on this, and I anticipate at least having 1 or 2 more prior to us even starting construction.
I think, Tom, Dan's right, and you gotta start somewhere. No matter what you're gonna do, people are gonna be critical of it. But if you could, Tom, in your put a scenario, you know, because of the other taxpayers are gonna pick up the difference. It's not gonna amount to much for the other people, but could you come up with some sort of figure on that, just, you know, that it's not significant for the rest of the taxpayers in Marshfield to help out on this? I think we need some idea.
Yeah, I can easily do that for you.
Okay.
And, you know, when I take a look at this, removing the breaker stone run and a 50% credit in the sidewalk kind of makes a lot of sense to me also. When I take a look at this for, trying to, maybe make it a little bit more comparable, a little bit more palatable for residents.
Anybody else have any comments, what you want Tom to come back with? Yeah, okay,
I just want
Okay,
to add
Dan?
one more thought here, in that, in this particular project, if we reduce the special assessments, then the other paying tax or, property tax paying, properties, you know, make up that difference, but sooner or later, all streets are gonna get some kind of a special assessment,
Mhm,
and so
right.
that's where the payback is, I
Yeah.
guess, is that when your street comes up for a special assessment, then maybe it's not as high.
Yeah.
If we amend our policies.
Yeah, and I'm just wanted people to realize all that. We gotta have as much information
Yeah,
for the
just to
people
know
as
the
we can.
magnitude,
Tom?
right?
And the other quick thing I want to note with this example is I didn't put in, water services, sanitary sewer services, or any other items that are accessible, like for, to the properties itself. I just wanted to keep it to the street itself. We do have other programs with the sanitary sewer pilot program for help assisting with, special assessments there. But I wanted to take a look at the road itself in this instance, so.
Could I, we don't have a motion yet. Could I get a motion by Mr. Fire second to approve, resolution, Mr. Rosendich? Now, any more discussion? Tom, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, not.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And Sam won't be here anyway for those, wastewater. Okay, recommended items for future agendas, Mr. Fisher.
I would like an update on where we're at with the ATV on city
Oh, sure.
roads.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, motion by Mr. Rosendich, second by Mr. Varsho. Thank you, we are adjourned.